That's the coffee speaking. Marvelous. Okay, my name is Claudio Tinarello. I'm a product manager here at files.com. In this session, I'm going to be talking about our storage options and how we allow you pretty much to do as you wish with your data. Yes, before I start, I will talk about the elephant in the room. I have an accent. Yes, I am from California. Dude. All right. So, all right, let's get started. This is what I'm going to cover today. You can read for yourselves. Hopefully you can see the screens from back there. So I'm going to talk about all our various options and go through them kind of one by one so that gives you an idea of what's capable on our platform and how you have control over where your data lives. So start with the first one is within files.com, just forget everyone else, but just within our files.com platform, we provide you with 7 regions to store your data in. Just quick show of hands, how many of you here only care about the US and have your data in the US, your users in the US, and the US is the only place you care about? All right, oh, that's pretty good. And how many of you have locations, users, systems outside of the US region? Oh, a few, okay. Nice, all right. So the nice thing is, we provide these out of the box, and the great thing is you can mix and match them. So for those of you that do have other regions, on a folder by folder basis, you can say, okay, this folder is in Canada, this folder is in Japan, and this folder is in the US, and it just works magically. Doesn't matter how your users and your systems connect to files.com, anything they put in that folder goes to that region. So it can help you with all of those, compliance regulations about keeping your data in a certain place. And by the way, even though I'm talking about storage here, we also have settings around data routing. So for example, we have a financial customer in Australia, and Australia has all these wonderful rules about how you protect your financial information and your banking data. And so they need to make sure that not only is the data stored in Australia, but that when it's passing from system to system, that stays in Australia as well. Like no data will ever touch the US or anywhere else. And we have those settings as well. So you can specify, for my business, I want my data to be in this region, and therefore you can ensure that your data stays there, whether it's the US, Canada, Japan, Singapore, the UK, Germany, Australia, it's all available to you. So flexibility about where you store your data. Oh, and by the way, we even make it magical for you if you change your mind. So if you place a folder in Canada and you go, oh, I meant to pick Japan, because that's a common mistake. I meant the other Canada, Japan, red and white flags, right? So when you change the setting on the folder, we will migrate the data seamlessly for you, and it just keeps working. So what that means is if you picked Canada, but now you've moved to Japan, we'll take all of that data and start moving it. And as your users and systems work with the data, it will go to Japan. And once all the data is over from Canada, it will all be in Japan, but you'll notice no outage. You can access new files, old files. It will just keep working, and we'll take care of all of that for you. So anyway, I've harped on about that enough. So outside of our regions, we also integrate with other cloud storage and other providers of storage providers. So you can pick and choose other systems to connect to. So if you don't like files.com storing your data, or maybe you have your own system or a compliance regulation says you have to use some other system, we can connect to those as well in the same way. And you can say, okay, this folder is going to exist in SharePoint, or this folder is going to exist in my S3 Amazon bucket in whatever region I want, or my Azure blob. So it allows you to connect to your own existing systems or other systems. In fact, they don't even have to be your systems. If you have partners, vendors, or suppliers that say, okay, I'm going to give you an FTP site that I need you to push things to, you can configure a folder and say, okay, this is going to be that SFTP site or that FTP site, or Filebase or Rackspace, whatever it is. We support a whole bunch of things. So again, the idea is that you decide where your data goes. And the great thing, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You can cherry pick and have as many folders as you like, with each folder going to a different solution. So if you're a Microsoft shop and you have SharePoint and you have an Azure blob storage and an Azure file storage, you can have all 3 of them working. If you're an Amazon shop and you have multiple S3 buckets, again, you have as many as you like. if you happen to be one of those companies that likes all, Amazon and Google and Microsoft, you can cherry pick and have all of those connected to your files.com platform. So we become like a central area where you can just choose wherever your data is and you can access it. And when it comes to accessing it, we can also automate certain actions. So you can access it in real time. So that folder can be a real-time view, a mount to that storage location. So you look at that folder, that is really a SharePoint folder. Anything you do in that is happening in SharePoint. We're just passing through the data and streaming it. It never actually lands on files.com. It's straight from the user or the system to SharePoint, and it's just magically streamed through. So that's real time. We can also set up syncs and do pushing and pulling for you. So if you have, for example, I have an Azure blob storage that all my Windows users use, but I also have an Amazon S3 bucket that my other team uses, but I need the data in both places. You can set up syncs that say, okay, I will push and pull from this location to that location, and it can be a one-way push, one-way pull, or bi-directional sync. So that way, you can have data in both places, and anything that's changed in one gets synced to the other, and vice versa. So again, lots of methods for you to access, synchronize, and move your data around your ecosystem, whether it's files.com or something else. All right, and by the way, quick show of hands here. How many of you are Azure fans or use Azure in your business? All right, that sounds about right. And how many of you are Google fans, use Google Drive, Google Cloud Storage? Oh, one. Okay. I thought there'd be two. But two. There you go. There you go. Got the two. And then Amazon. How many of you S3 buckets? Fantastic. And just again, show of hands here, regardless of whether you said Amazon, Google, or Microsoft. How many of you only use US locations for your storage? Only US. Okay. And the show of hands, how many of you use other regions for those? Okay, a couple. Interesting. All right, cool. So mostly US. Fantastic. All right, so that's all about our remote servers. Now, stretching a bit further, sometimes people come to us and say, okay, rather than just having a modern cloud storage solution like Azure or Amazon S3, I have an on-premise system. It's legacy. It's my favorite Windows, Linux, whatever it is, your favorite system, and you want to connect that to files.com. We have an agent, which is a small footprint piece of software that you can install on the system, and it will magically connect that system to files.com and allow you to do everything I just mentioned. So now the files and folders on that system can magically appear in files.com, and you can interact with them, again, in real time through a folder, or by syncing, or by using automations. All of our features just work with it. But now it allows you to connect that on-premise system with your files.com account, or your site. The great thing about this is we can see the files, the folders that you allow us to. So it's all secure. We only see what you allow us to. You can say, oh, see all the disks, or you can say, only see this folder. It's all built into the security, so you control what users can see, what our system can see. But if you choose to, not only can we see the local disks, we can see sideways from that computer. So the computer or the system that hosts the agent can also look sideways across the network and see network-attached drives, SANs, NASs, anything that's attached. Again, if you've given us permission to, we can access those and push and pull from it. So we have some customers that have legacy applications. They run on Windows 2008 and will never move off that because the developers have all moved on. So this allows you to plumb that system and connect your own custom and homegrown applications to the files.com ecosystem. Typically, these systems have, an inbox and outbox folders, but the point is, if it's got folders, the agent can see it, and now you can push and pull and deliver things. In fact, we had a customer, they have an on-premise system that I think it's connected to, I can't remember if it's like factory, it's not a warehouse, but it's either factory or printing machines. So, their application receives data, and anything it gets, it prints out because the printers are attached to that, warehouse or that on-premise system. So they were able to use our inboxes, which allow you, you pick any folder, make it an inbox, advertises it to the world either by a URL or password protected. You can apply some protection to it. But the point is, if you need to collect data from anyone, you can create an inbox and say, hey, everybody, anything you upload to this inbox will get delivered to this folder securely. Well, that folder can be an agent folder. So they were able to just collect these jobs, have them delivered right to their on-premise, all through the cloud and streamed, and then process that data. And the same on the way out. You can take those agent folders, those on-premise folders, and expose those securely to the outside world. And the great thing is, we can add additional security, because obviously, if you have a Windows or a Linux in-house system, the last thing you want to do is expose it to the outside world without having security to make sure that you control what's going on. So what you can do is, rather than just exposing it to the outside world, we can layer on things like the access permissions, like single sign-on or passwords or GPG encryption. You can specify the rules of the typical stuff you have on files.com, IP whitelists, access controls, and put all that in front of your on-premise system. And the agent will just happily say, okay, files.com will take care of all of the security, and once you've got through all those checks and balances, I'll connect you to the back-end system and securely deliver or pick up those files. So anyway, nice little agent there. Oh, and by the way, we also have customers using the agent in interesting ways. I've already mentioned the one on-premise system for collecting data, but we have a customer that has properties, I want to say it's 140 properties around the US. And what they have is they have Windows servers sitting under desks at these properties for doing things like access control of people who keycard in and out of the premises, those kind of things. And timesheets. So what they do is, they had to run around 140 different locations and keep troubleshooting these computers because they kept going offline and having problems. So what they've done is they've installed 140 agents on all of their premises. And now it magically connects to files.com, and they can do all of the management through files.com. When they need files pushed and pulled, whether it's timesheets or the access control logs, they can just do it from their files.com interface and access the data in real time or sync it as needed at the end of the day at 5 o'clock. So that's kind of like the extreme end of having 140 agents in your account, but it works. All right, fantastic. Oh, and by the way, the agent it's really small footprint, but it runs on anything. So it's Linux, Mac, and Windows. Mostly 64-bit, though we did make an exception to one Windows customer that had a 32-bit Windows 2000, I want to say it was a 2008 server, 2003 maybe? Anyway, they had an old 32-bit Windows, so we managed to get it working on that. It runs on things as small as a Raspberry Pi and as big as you can imagine. And in fact, I don't know if any of you here have mainframes. Does anyone have a mainframe? Or oh, dang it, I was hoping one of you would, because I'm dying to see this running on a Linux partition on a mainframe. So I can say we run on everything. But anyway, okay, so that's the agent. Moving on, I've already mentioned a little bit about legacy systems, which is what the agent's ideal for. And we do recommend, if you have a legacy system, use the agent, because it's the single best way of getting data securely. It encrypts everything, it's modern, it's small footprint, all of the checks and balances are there. However, I realize that some people have, let me take one step back with the agent. I keep saying on-premise. On-premise means physically on-premise, but it also means virtually on-premise. So if you're cloud hosted and your systems are in a data center in the cloud or somewhere else, the agent can also run there. It's not limited to just on-premise. It's any system you have control of, you can install the agent on. But anyway, back to legacy systems. So legacy systems. There are some systems that really legacy. You can't install anything on for whatever reason. They're really old platforms or they're really old applications, and they just don't host anything that's 64-bit or even 32-bit maybe. So we do have some customers that have old legacy applications that will never be updated, but they do have an FTP port or an SFTP port. I mean, even SAP, old versions of SAP have this. So if you're running like old SAP or some of these applications, they'll sometimes provide an SFTP port where you can connect to it and upload and download into the application. And of course, we can support that. You can use SFTP, FTP, and WebDAV to connect to those on-premise or legacy systems and push and pull data. It's not great. And the only reason I say that is because these protocols are very sensitive to firewalls, especially FTP. So if you have great IT people that know how to set up the firewalls, these will be fine. But these days, I've learned that if you can make a mistake on a firewall, someone will make a mistake on a firewall. There is not a month that goes by without someone saying, oh, I'm just going to update this firewall rule. No one will notice, and then they wonder why the systems can't be connected to. But anyway, we do allow this. WebDAV, I would say that SFTP is the most popular these days as far as connectivity to legacy systems. There are still some that use FTP, though that's really gone away over the last decade. And WebDAV, we have one customer who for some reason, they have a legacy Windows application, and WebDAV is built into Windows. It's like the old Windows for Workgroups networking. But WebDAV is like Windows for Workgroups across the internet. In theory, it allows one Windows computer to connect to another across the internet, and in theory, it works, except for firewalls. But if you're good with your firewalls, we can connect through WebDAV. It's a very chatty protocol, which means it's good for one-off files, but once you do multiple files, it starts clogging the network and waits too long and things slow down a lot. But anyway, for legacy systems, we still allow connections. Your best bet, please use the agent. It's so much more modern, so much more faster than everything else, but we can support these legacy protocols as well. All right, now, one of the questions I get is, all right, so we have all of these ways to connect to your data and to your systems, and I can place my data anywhere I want in the world. So what should I think about? Because I want to get the best performance. I assume you always want the best performance, but sometimes you're limited by compliance regulations or by physical geography of where your users and your systems are. So there are a lot of considerations, but I'll try and give you a cheat sheet of some of the common things to think about so that you don't get, in a situation where people are complaining about how long it takes to get their data. So the first one is bandwidth. Just because you can place your data anywhere doesn't mean that the road to that data has as many lanes as another road, right? It's very different living in LA where you have like these 16-lane freeways versus, living probably, 50 miles north of here. Maybe you have a couple of lanes, dirt road to your barn out in hopefully you live out in somewhere with a barn. But the point is, if you install your agent on a system that's in a barn somewhere, it's an on-premise system where someone has a DSL connection, right, a one-lane road, you will only ever get one lane of traffic. Now, Files.com and cloud systems like Azure, Google, and Amazon, Microsoft, those cloud services like Files.com, we are the 32, 64 lane highways. I mean, cloud services are elastic. They give you as many lanes of traffic as you need. So you can send 32, 64 lanes of traffic to Files.com and will happily accept it. But if the agent is on a barn with a one-lane dirt road to it, only one lane of traffic can get to that agent. No matter how fast the agent works, it's one lane of traffic. So that's the thing with bandwidth. And that's mostly to on-premise systems, because on-premise is usually when you're limited to things like DSL or your T1 connection or your physical connection out from that site to the internet. Within the internet and across the cloud, usually bandwidth's not a problem. All right, regional distance. Regional distance, obviously meaning Europe, Asia, America. There is no getting around it. I mean, the speed of light is the speed of light, and it's amazing that we can zoom around the world with our parents and family in whatever country they're in. But the reality is the further away that system is, the longer it's going to take to get their data to get there and back. Introduces latency. Now, again, cloud to cloud, if you're going from Azure or Google or Files.com from Asia to Europe to the US, it's not that big of a deal. There's lots of really big bandwidth between those cloud systems, and they tend to be very quick. But once you start breaking out into certain continents, like Africa, South America, trying to think of some other places, India, yes, and Australia, some of those places, they're further away on the internet than the major three continents, or Asia, Europe, and the US. So what happens is you'll get a bottleneck. Like India's notorious for this. During the workday, they only have a certain amount of bandwidth, and everyone has offices in India, and you start seeing the data slow down. So you want to have your systems as close as possible to your users. And I mentioned regional routing. So if you're in the US and you're using US cloud and US folders and everything's US, great for you, that's fantastic. If you're doing things like connecting to a system in India, and let's say you have the agent in India and you have your users in India, but your Files.com site is in the US, it means that everything they do in India has to come to the US first before it goes back to India. You're boomeranging and taking the scenic route with your data. And no matter how you do it, that will always be slower than working locally. So if ever you've tried like Zoom, well, I'm trying to think of a good example of bad latency, like Zooming with my dad in Europe, but that's another question, another story. But yes, if you've ever had those Zoom calls with somebody in India in the middle of the night and their video keeps freezing when you're trying to talk to them and turn off your video, let's see if that makes it go faster. Those are the kind of problems you'll see when you start sending data around the world, the long way round, the scenic route. All right, connection limits. This is an interesting one. Most cloud-based systems don't have connection limits. If you have 32 lanes of road, we're going to let 32 lanes of traffic in. But there are some systems like Dropbox, Box. Those are the two ones I know mostly of. They're the worst. I think Google, if you have Google Drive, a personal account as opposed to a business account, what they'll do is, even though they're cloud-based and they say, oh, we allow as many connections as you like, in reality, they'll say, oh, what we mean is five a minute, or only 2 concurrent ones at a time. So some of these will actually, even though they have more lanes, at the end of the lane, there's like literally 2 people at the gate letting 2 cars at a time through. FTP, by the way, if you have a legacy FTP or SFTP servers, some of them I know, it's not GlobalScape, it's not one of the other ones. They have a 2 concurrent limit. So if you're connecting to push and pull data, they'll allow 2 connections at a time to connect and push and pull data, and a third one won't be allowed in. They'll literally limit the connection and say you can only get that third connection if one of the first 2 drops out. So that's another, again, you can have as many lanes as you like, but if there's only 2 gates at the end of those lanes, only 2 connections are going to be allowed in. And then rate limits. This is another Dropbox and Box thing. They will, ostensibly to try and stop people spamming them, they'll say, we don't want people to bring down our systems with too many connections, but they don't know who's who. They're just seeing IP addresses come in across the internet. So what they'll do is they'll rate limit and they'll say, okay, on average, our average users send us 100 connections a minute. And so they'll allow 100 connections a minute, but the moment there's a peak and the average goes over that, they'll say, oh, slow down, buddy. And you'll start seeing these 429 errors, which means call back later, we're busy. And they'll either slow you down or they'll just won't let you connect. But that's another issue when you're connecting to various systems. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing this up is because you're connecting all of these different storages and systems, it's just good to be aware that when you're planning your data flows and your data access, the cloud is wonderfully elastic, and we tend to get lulled into that whole Netflix mentality of anytime I want a movie, I just hit play and it starts playing and it doesn't matter who's watching it, and I have 10 people in my family all streaming from my Netflix account, and it just works. And it does when you stay in the cloud. But the moment you connect to a system that has rate limits or connection limits, again, doesn't matter how many people you have connected to Files.com, Files.com may only be allowed, say, 2 connections at 100 times a minute to that on-premise or that legacy system. So again, I know I'm harping on it, but it's because we occasionally get people who say, oh, you guys are fantastic. We can have 10,000 accounts on Files.com. Connect to my Windows server under my desk. It's like, you can't have 10,000 people connecting to that Windows server. And they'll call us, why isn't it working? It's working, but within the limits of what you've got. So again, think about the way where your data lives and how you need to access it when you're planning these things out, so you don't kind of paint yourself into a corner. All right. And that was it. Okay, so hopefully I've given you some useful information about what's capable with Files.com, what you can do, how you can connect, and giving you some caveats about what to think of when you're plumbing these connections together. So with that, anyone have any questions? Oh, and by the way, yes, if we grab the mic, please let us know your name and who you work for posterity, so we know.
My name is Brian Whitlarge. I work for Pillar Health. My question is concerning the agent. Can you do a snapshot with the agent?
You mean share link snapshots?
No, you do like a snapshot of the VM or the actual entire OS or whatever.
Oh, like while the agent's running on it, do a snapshot? And,
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
You can do that?
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you snapshot and you freeze that VM, then the agent will go offline. Like it won't be able to. You can't do real-time access to something that's shut down. But if you're running and you take a snapshot and the VM stays running, yeah, no worries.
Okay. The agent itself is doing the snapshot.
Oh, I see. No, I meant the VM doing the snapshot. No, the agent doesn't do any snapshotting. It's stateless effectively, and it's a listener for our cloud. It extends our cloud down, but it just allows real-time in and out data, access. But it's not aware of snapshotting or anything. It's just not a postman, a USPS man, DHL delivery driver. It just delivers the data.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about, do you have to do any kind of firewall rules or exceptions for the agent to work?
It's magic. Our agent, the fact that we designed it this way, firewalls are the biggest problem with on-premise systems. And then the other two biggest problems are firewalls and then firewalls. So we've built it so that when it connects, it securely establishes a connection back. So it's securely calling home instead of allowing inbound connections. It calls out securely, and you don't have to make any firewall changes. It's an encrypted connection. Only your agent can connect to your site. No one else can use your agent. In fact, you can make as many agents as you like, and they belong to you. No one else can use the agent but you.
Is there any sort of credentials or anything to do? You have to put.
It is, but that's all magical. When you generate the agent, you say, I want an agent, all of that's magically set up in your site.
Yeah.
And again, only your site can use that agent, like no one else can. So yeah, it's all super encrypted, all authenticated. Other questions? Can you tell I like the agent? And that I'm very caffeinated? Any other questions? Oh, yes. Mike. Oh, hold your hand up behind you. Okay, name and company, please.
Hi, I'm Luke from Invita Healthcare. Okay. So I'm just curious, it seems like we have the ability to do kind of at-rest storage pretty much anywhere. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious if there's any plans to build something to allow us to have in-flight kind of geo restrictions for something that's not in the 7 regions that you have right now.
In-flight geo restrictions? So you want to prohibit people connecting from certain regions?
Not so much. So say I want to deploy a site in Saudi Arabia where Files doesn't really have a presence right now.
Yeah.
I could stand up an S3 bucket there and that would work fine. But if I want to make sure that the traffic stays in Saudi Arabia, I don't have that ability right now.
Correct. Right now, the geo routing is in the 7 regions. So you can pick the closest one, like Germany would be closest to Saudi Arabia, and then all data would never go anywhere but Germany and Saudi Arabia. But you're right, right now it's one of our 7 regions. And that's, you get to pick one and everything goes through there.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, we do have geo block lists, so you can do things like no connections from Cuba are allowed, or no connections from Canada, because, Canadians. Right. Other questions? Oh, come on. Am I putting you to sleep and everyone wants a nap now? Oh, one more. Okay, one more.
About whitelisting or blacklisting the areas, I wonder, some of the areas people use VPN so they can spoof the IP.
Yes.
But they're coming from anywhere, and some of our files.com public sites being attacked because they became public, and we keep blocking, they keep changing. I wonder if a whitelisting functionality is coming in.
Yes. We already have whitelisting, blacklisting. It's a double-edged sword exactly for the reason you've mentioned. So if someone uses a VPN, you're tunneling to somewhere else, right? So even though we may say no Russia, no China, if they're VPNing into the US, then they look like US traffic. So we can do country-based filtering, and we double check it as well, so we can block those countries. We also do IP-based filtering. So you can say, all right, I'm only going to trust these IP ranges within the US. So I know my offices and I know my partners, and if it comes from them, I trust it, anyone else is blocked. The reason I say it's a double-edged sword is because it's kind of hard-coded. If you go to the IP route and your customer forgets to tell you that they moved offices and now they have new IP addresses, the only way you're going to know about it is when they call you to complain, why can't I connect to you this Monday? Nothing changed. We didn't change anything. You moved. Well, that's not a change. We just moved offices. That's not a change. But anyway, that's the negative side of it, is dealing with that.
What is it called in files.com?
It's under users, maybe it's under groups, but it's the IP list. Yeah, sorry.
We're actually going to have a session that specifically goes into governance and settings.
Yeah.
And Dave was sitting in the Dave was sitting in the front. So Dave's going to have that session around governance control, security controls, and stuff like that. So we'll definitely get into that. But we're happy to even just show it to you.
Yeah, search for
grab
IP.
one of us, we can just show it to you.
Search for IP at the top, and it'll show you the settings that you can block IPs by. It'll be one of those, but we'll be showing it to you. Or we can show you outside on the next break. Other questions? Oh, I thought you had two questions for a second there. Both hands up. All right, going once, going twice. All right, thank you guys.